Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth and final Outcome Area Working Group meeting for the Workforce and Economic Development. We will have a few housekeeping items before we begin. Next slide. Here's our agenda today. We're going to start with an overview of the key takeaways from the meeting held in May. We'll hear from a panel of subject matter experts who will address the unique barriers faced by the covered populations they serve, what their organizations are doing to address these barriers, and what solutions they have seen as effective. We'll then have an interactive discussion with all of you about the lived experiences of those impacted by the digital divide. And finally, we'll wrap up with a few calls to action. Next slide. Please note this meeting is being recorded. We will be posting the recording of this meeting, the slides, and transcripts to the Broadband for All portal. Additionally, we have closed captioning available. It is down on the bottom toolbar. We will also extensively be using the chat feature. So please, as a start, go to the chat and write your name and organization and where you're joining from. And finally, we will be also using the reactions toolbar, which is down on the bottom as well, for raised hand feature. That'll come in when you want to make a comment, ask a question, or later on in the community discussion. Final note, we do have ASL interpretation. The best way to view the ASL interpretation is selecting the side-by-side speaker view. And you can see that on the top right of your Zoom bar. Next slide. And Carlos, if you'd like to take this away from Broadband Equity Partnerships.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Carlos. Thank you, Cole. So we'll dive right into some of the May meeting takeaways from our discussion and some things we talked about. So we discussed closing the diversity gap that is prevalent in the tech industry. We also spoke about developing digital literacy training to promote critical career skills. And we spoke about the lack of infrastructure deployment that acts as a barrier for those who deal with slow connectivity speeds, and also about expanding opportunities through online higher education to help improve economic outcomes for those that need it the most. So we'll move on to the next slide. Some barriers to digital equity. So we talk about the lack of access to online services, resources, and processes perpetuating systems of exclusion for some of the covered populations that we know and we're looking to take care of and that are mentioned. So another thing too is the unaffordable internet services and devices that limit ability to participate in and benefit from joining the digital workforce. And finally, there's the limited availability of broadband deployment and training programs.
Thank you, Carlos. Next slide. And so through the past 3 workforce and economic development outcome area working groups, we've started to really narrow in on some recommended strategies. Now, these aren't all of them, but these are some of those recommended strategies. And so in terms of number 1, it's really about prioritizing the digital literacy training and utilize funding and federal guidelines to enhance access to digital skills for job seekers, and development of culturally competent training and job application digital training. Additionally, we've talked about how to invest in supportive services and broadband adoption campaigns, how to provide capacity grants to community-based organizations, and leverage resources like libraries, STEM programs, and Calbright to support diverse populations in upskilling. The third strategy is about establishing pathways from community-based organizations to higher education. So allowing organizations to provide a range of digital skills and training and collaborate with agencies to develop roadmaps towards employment. Our fourth is that it's about promoting the use of inclusive apprenticeships, at every stage of network development, from construction to operations and maintenance, and this includes certification. Additionally, it's including culturally competent, bilingual, and inclusive of all digital skill abilities, and those who have historically been underrepresented, like those including women and LGBTQI plus communities. And finally, it's about fostering collaboration of both public and private partnerships to build and promote and encourage the partnerships behind the educational institutions, behind the governmental entities, the workforce boards, the private industry, and philanthropy, to join all in efforts in building broadband training programs. It's really about that ecosystem support and trying to find ways to diversify the tech industry to be more reflective of our state. And so with those strategies and those barriers and kind of an idea of the May meeting, let's dive into this month's meeting, our last and final meeting with a group of really great subject matter experts. Next slide. This will give you an idea of who we have joining, which is Dr. Pham and others. And we're going to actually take the slides down, and I am going to introduce first the president of the California State Board of Food and Agricultural, Don Cameron, to join on camera audio to give us a little bit of ideas about the barriers, the gaps, and strategies that you are all using successfully. Don?
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. And really, it's a pleasure to be on the panel with you today. So I live and I farm on the west side of Fresno County. To give you a little idea, we have about 65 employees year round, and they all live in the rural communities. And we've seen what's happened really through the COVID period, not only with our farming operation, but with our employees and the education that their children have received. We have seen we know we have the highest rates of poverty in the U.S. We know that the area lacks the last mile. We know that the infrastructure is really lacking in most of the region, and this is just really an example of what's happening in rural California. I mean, I'm speaking because I deal with it every day. But we know that many of the homes in the region have no internet. Their children have no access. Like I say, they're facing poverty, they're facing food insecurity, lack of transportation, healthcare, educational opportunities. And in many cases, they've really been left behind. During COVID, we had children of our workers unable to access educational resources because they didn't have internet, they didn't have broadband. They were trying to tether a cell phone to 2 tablets, and it just doesn't work. We've seen that when you do, if you can deploy, you're going to see many of the economic problems improve. You're going to see more economic development in these regions. We know that with our own business, we were abandoned essentially by our phone company years ago with a hardwired line, and we're forced to go to voice over internet. The only problem with that is our internet speed was 15 megabits down and 5 up. We had to have several services. It was extremely expensive, and we lacked at many times internet at all because we'd have failures in the system. We know that if we do get broadband to the rural homes, to the communities, that their healthcare is going to be improved, their education is going to be improved, their fluency in training is going to be much better. They're going to have much more opportunities to improve their livelihoods. And really in agriculture, we have been waiting to implement on-farm technology, and we haven't been able to do it because we just don't have the resources for broadband. We know that if we had the capability, we would be putting multiple sensors in the field, using water much more wisely, being able to control it. And not only that, we'd be able to provide much better jobs for our employees in being able to operate a more automated system. We feel that there would be new careers available that would actually give high-paying jobs to these people that are doing some really basic functions out there right now. We just feel that without this, the area doesn't move forward. We're seeing many issues with water supply, during the last 3 years of drought, and know that if we use our water wisely, we'll be able to provide more economic return for the communities in the rural areas all throughout California. We've got sustainable groundwater management. That's going to require additional technology to implement so that we can measure everything we do and report it. And just a side note, I can give you a little example of what we've been through over the years in trying to secure broadband on farm. We were quoted by a major telecommunications company several years ago to bring fiber to our farm was $750,000, which we decided against doing. And that was for 20 megabits up and 20 megabits down. We had it requoted 6 months later. The price was 1.5 million. And they had already sent us terminal equipment. We turned around, we sent everything back. So we know that we've been lacking. It gets me upset when I listen to a radio station in the Bay Area and I hear gigabyte speed and we can't even get to 20. And it's extremely hard to run a business operation without good quality broadband. We have another issue. All of our the majority of our rural addresses are unverified, making, excuse me, making service an issue. When I do have broadband and, I order something, many of the locations won't even deliver. They won't even take my order because we're unverified. And it's all part of being a rural resident and dealing with many of the problems we have to deal with here. I love living on the farm. I love the atmosphere. I love the workers we have. But we need to do better. We have more than a digital divide. It is a total lack of connectivity for many of our workers and businesses that are trying to function here in California. So,
and thank you, Don. And I think it's a good reminder that I think we said in digital equity in workforce, it includes access to technology, but it's not just digital barriers. Also, there's the physical barriers like transportation and childcare. We've heard that a couple of times. And then I'd also like to hear a little bit, maybe just quickly on just kind of underscore how broadband is in support of like the precision agricultural and food production, because I think that's a huge piece that you just deliver, which is that farm technology cannot be used if there's no access, right? There's no automation, there's no improvements there.
Yeah, there's no question. We have been lacking. We have wanted to do improvements on farm for years. And the technology is, okay, you can go deploy cell phones around, pay for each cell phone connection. And many times we can't even get reception on parts of our ranch for cell phones. So what's happening is we have, we want to modernize. We want to run our farm with the highest technology possible. We want to be able to control and automate our pumps that we're using, our irrigation valves in the field. We want to be able to do moisture measurements real time, connect our weather stations. There's just so much that is lacking. And not only does it bring economic improvement for all of the community, because anything we do, we're purchasing from the local suppliers, but it actually conserves water, makes us much more efficient in what we do. And we have been left out of out of the picture for many years. And yeah, we're just waiting to get equipment out in the field.
Awesome.
It's vital for agriculture. It's vital for our workers. It's just valuable for our community because all of our workers are Hispanic. Many of them are undocumented, and they feel like they're left behind, and that they are we did a health fair at our farm, and the comment was, "We're always last in line," and we put them first. And the attitude was, and the response was fantastic. And we know that they're limited because they don't have broadband. They can't get the education they need. They can't, if they want to look something up. I mean, you know how normal it is for people to use Google to answer questions and find information, find where to go to get what they need. It's totally lacking in rural California in most areas. So something
Awesome.
like this
Thank you.
benefits not only myself and our farming operation, but really all of our workforce.
Outstanding. Thank you again, Don. And thank you as the president of the California State Board of Food and Agriculture. Next up, we have Dr. Pham, who's the Vice President of Information Technology at the Hartnell Community College. And look forward to passing it off to you, Dr. Pham.
Thank you, Cole, for that introduction, and thank you, Don, for your words. I want to thank the California Broadband Project because the major access to the digital divide is access, which that's what you're working on now. And at the college, what we can do is we can work on access to technology and digital literacy. So for Hartnell, we actually cover 14,000 students across our district, and we have over 600 employees that work for us. And in that, when we talk about the digital divide technology, we have several programs that are actually catered to our students and community to work on those things. One of those programs is called the Salinas Valley Promise Program. And we actually work with our cities around us who support us and provide free technology to our students. So the students who qualify for this program have free tuition, and we give them a laptop before they start school. So right off the bat, they have the technology, and then they can take the courses they need. And we also offer mentorship also for those students. In addition to that, what we have done is we've actually have centers for our different population of students. Don talked about the undocumented. We have a Bicasa program that's specifically for undocumented students. We have a center for them, and in all of our centers, we have computers for our students to use. If they don't have their own, they're welcome to come. The Wi-Fi is free. They have access to technology and help and support. We also support our veterans. We have a large veteran center here. We have a lot of vet students. And when you have vets helping vets, there's a trusted advisor there, when they need support or assistance. And it's practically like it's just natural for us to always set up a computer lab in each of our centers. So all of our centers have computer labs for students or somebody come in and use those information. And a special population we take care of is also the incarcerated. So we actually go to the prisons and juvenile to actually teach courses there. And since as you can imagine, in a prison situation where Wi-Fi internet is not freely roamed around or can have access to, so we actually we haul in the equipment, we haul in the laptops, and we haul in the hotspots, and that's how we service our students, and that's how they take classes with us in there. And we also have programs as they come out of there to help them grow in those areas. We have traditional computer labs. We used to do that. And what we found was, computers are limited to what they have, and students couldn't do AutoCAD at home because we reach our main campus to the furthest campus is 50 miles away. So you can imagine in their very high farm area, very rural, and sometimes students can't get to, where they need to get broadband, or they can get to somewhere, but they don't have the technology, right? And so we've invested in app streaming. This is actually a program through AWS where it doesn't matter what computer you have. You can do things like AutoCAD, SolidWorks, and Photoshop in those applications just through a Chrome browser. So now we're able to have students be able to take online courses on AutoCAD. And that helped them with the transportation because it's all through the browser. And then instead of one computer you can get for $2,000, we can get 10 Chromebooks, and we can service, sorry, my light, we can service more students that way. So we're very excited to keep going, and we work very closely with our faculty who teach the business classes. Like they teach Microsoft Outlook, they teach Word, they teach all those core courses at beginning computers, but we want to make sure that whatever they're teaching, we're providing so that they're not behind the times, right? If we're teaching Office 365, that's what we're also offering to use around the college. So through multiple programs, and virtually everything is bilingual, right? We are a Hispanic serving institution, so we serve about 60% of Hispanics. Many of them don't speak English, so a lot of our literature and our support staff also are bilingual. So that's kind of how we're reaching out. We're continuously growing that, throughout all of our things that we do here at the college.
Thank you, Dr. Pham. That was excellent. And I think it's really important to acknowledge how important the community college play in training, both not just the basic digital skills, but the apprenticeship and the technology training. I really like this idea that you just shared, which is the partnering with private industry. So AWS, you're building public-private partnerships to solve not just like digital equity physical barriers, but solving it with digital options and bilingual options. And so I think that's impressively cool. And plus, you're not just working with one covered population, right? Community colleges play a really important role because it's expansive. It can cover the vast majority of all the covered populations, and you've shared that, right, for those both like with the justice involved. So incredibly thank you. Scott, do you have anything to add on with Dr. Pham?
No, Cole, I think you hit the nail on the head. Just the reoccurring theme of kind of it takes a village to come together, and that the community colleges play a really central role in that equation.
Outstanding. Thank you, Dr. Pham, and thank you, Scott. And so now I'm going to introduce the Vice President of Workforce Solutions at Wireless Infrastructure Association, Amelia De Jesus. Amelia?
Thank you so much, Cole. I appreciate it. The Wireless Infrastructure Association is a trade association, and I want to say right off the bat that we're very committed to ensuring that all Americans have access to broadband, whether that's fixed or mobile. Ideally, we want to make sure that wherever people work, they live, they travel, they do have telecommunications. What I would say is, as we're closely aligned with telecommunications industry, when we were building out 3G and 4G, we identified labor shortages. Now, with the need to build out 5G and broadband technologies across the United States, in addition to the federal funding that's available, we're seeing that labor shortage exacerbated. And as you know, the digital barriers that were shared by the previous panelists and even Cole and Carlos, DE is so essential, because if we're not able to overcome these barriers, we're ideally preventing individuals from having access to the resources, the training and education, and even the job opportunities that are available and that will be created through 5G and broadband expansions. So knowing that we've had labor shortages in the past, and the labor shortages are just going to continue and become worse and essentially limit our ability to enable broadband, the Telecommunications Center was created by the Wireless Infrastructure Association. So for short, we call it TEC. We've developed over 40 courses across the industry, everything from fiber to broadband to in-building to tower technologies, really making sure that the training and education is available to individuals, and they can have a training that's more formal than just on the job, but now they have industry validated and credentialed training. So we're really excited that this training is available through community college systems, technical vocational schools, K through 12 middle schools, and we're allowing that training to really be dispersed into some of the rural areas through some of our train the trainer and teacher boot camps that we have available. So being able to access those rural areas, ensure that we reach some of those covered populations. We're also expanding our training into incarcerated population groups as well through prison systems. So individuals that are to be released within the next 6 months, year, we're offering them that training and curriculum. So as they're released, they're able to join the workforce. And it's been an exciting program. We've had a lot of success there. In addition to the Telecommunications Education Center and the courses that we offer across the country, the Wireless Infrastructure Association is also registered with the Department of Labor as the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program. So nationally, we've already had 15 approved occupations within the industry. And as I mentioned, just as our courses cover the industry, our approved occupations through apprenticeship also cover the industry. So for example, we have cell site technician, we have a broadband technician, fiber technician. And when we think about these occupations, just as we think about training and education, we don't only think about these jobs as just one-time occasion, one-time jobs. We think about these as longer-term careers. So we spend a lot of time looking at career paths, making sure that there's promotional opportunities within our industry. Last but not least, what WIA has done over the past few years is also lead sector partnership as an industry intermediary. So ideally, we're convening academia, government, and industry to determine what the labor needs look like, what the talent gaps look like, and based on those talent gaps and labor needs, we're able to then identify what the training and education programs look like so we can implement those. You know, we talked about wraparound services and the need to make sure that we can get education, transport, childcare, elderly care, some of those covered. As we think about recruiting for the industry and really bringing career awareness, reaching out to those community, whether it's library systems, churches, community centers, but really trying to reach out and engage with covered population is crucial because there's a whole industry out there where we lack workers and resources. And it's important that incomers to our industry know that there's careers available that are not just jobs, they're long-term careers, they're good paying jobs. They allow you to live where you work where you live, and really put back into your economy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amelia. I think it's really great to remind ourselves that this conversation, there's two sides of the workforce, right? It's those that join and we want to be able to upskill and be able to join digitally the actual workforce in the technology industry or really any industry remotely. But also there's this workforce side of the labor side of the infrastructure, the deployment side. And so it's really cool to hear about kind of what's going on at WIA and how it can contribute to the technical training that's required to address the labor supply shortage and support broadband infrastructure funding by all of the recent investments, right? Both state and federally, and in all the other kind of infrastructure that's also being funded through IIJA and similar. There is one question. We have a moment to address it if you have it. I know I've been watching your LinkedIn and you're very active with a lot of data and ideas. So do you have any data or projections on job shortages and certifications that are needed in eligible positions in California?
So specifically in California, I don't have that data because I haven't been working through that assessment. That's one of the things, like I mentioned, we do in terms of what populations we need to cover, what locations we need to cover, and based on those, you really highlight the specific occupations needed and henceforth the specific labor counts needed. I know recently NTIA did put out a labor needs research findings that they shared nationally and was specific to states. And I think that gave us a good directional sense of what those positions look like and how many were needed to really deploy the networks.
Awesome. Thank you again, Amelia, and thank you for speaking to that question. Now I'd like to pass it over to the Sacramento Site Director at the Center for Employment Opportunities, Connor Lawrence. Connor?
Awesome. Thank you, Cole. Thank you guys for having me and for having us as CEO. Basically, just want to piggyback off of what Amelia was talking about. She's raised so many good points around specifically justice-involved work and the digital equity that's happening. I can give a brief overview for Center for Employment Opportunities. What we do is we do workforce development and professional services specifically for people who are returning to their communities locally in reentry. We in Sacramento, we are one of 32 sites across the country doing this, and that breaks down state to state and the digital equity access a little differently, but I'll speak to here in California and what we've seen with our participants. So what we do with the workforce development and professional services is we bring participants into our program who are coming home. We develop them with soft skills and hard skills trainings. We also employ them first to work on our work crews with our site supervisors, so we can vet them in real time and also give them the opportunity to get back into the workforce right away. It gives them that practice in what the workforce is looking like in 2023. And it also helps with their daily pay. We pay them every day for the work that they do, which helps give them a leg up as they're coming home and as they're transitioning. As you can imagine, somebody coming home from however many years they were incarcerated, that coming home can look different, and the level of access they have to the community can really look different. We say coming home, but in reality, for a lot of our participants, it's really a lie. It's not coming home. You're just coming physically back to a location, but that location is not the same home that you left. And that is really, really the point that I want to raise in specifically the reentry space for digital equity. Our participants that we work with, and all across the country, we have people who are coming home, returning to their communities and returning to the workforce, many of whom who have spent decades inside the prison system, where in the prison system, there are resources depending on if it's a public or a private system, depending on how well funded it is, and depending on that prison's specific politics, which I won't get into here. But I only raise that point to say that the actual access to digital skills, education, resources can look very different, and it is very, say, not commonly utilized in the prison systems. Something that I know Amelia raised is they're doing now is more for the release aspect, which is great. But what I've seen with our participants is we have people with decades worth of not experience yet. And so when they're coming home to an entirely different world that they left. And for folks like you and I, we have been through the technological revolution in the last 15 years. So for us, it's very commonplace at this point. But for people who are coming home and they're being told to get this resource to the community or to get this resource, you have to go through these specific digital channels like QR codes or online applications, things like that that are very, very foreign to people who may not have heard of that or don't have the experience quite yet. So like I said, what we're doing at the national level is advocacy and raising awareness around this. And then at the local level with our participants specifically, we do a lot of workshops and seminars around workforce development. And we realize in real time that's very much tied to digital education. So we have a lot of workshops that are very centered around very basic digital skills. We recognize that with employer partners and employers all across the country, everything is digitized now. Applications, a lot of interviews, onboarding processes, assessments, they can be very clear cut for folks who have that experience, but for folks who don't, it's very foreign. So we do a lot of working with people to develop how to create resumes, but really how to start with, how do you respond to email? How do you do these very, very basic digital, I guess you could say hygiene tasks or administrative tasks that really help get you through those small steps to an application. So we work with all of that, but we see barrier-wise, there are a couple of things that come up. One being, which I've already mentioned, is education. The lack thereof that happens and the disparity between what is needed for somebody to complete an online application with an employer versus what participants have experience-wise with being able to use a computer or use a cell phone. It's very, very wide gap. So we see that and we try to work in that space to work in the education and work with education partners. Another barrier that we see is just access. Like I said, with participants who are returning to the community, access can look very different and it's very nuanced depending on what their specific case was what are the conditions of their probation or their parole, and what physically, geographically do they have access for. And that also can translate into how they have access to certain workshops or certain libraries, things like that can look very different. So community access is a challenge. I would also say financially, that's a huge barrier. People who are coming home are very transitional in nature and are looking to get those resources and to build themselves back up to re-enter the community, but they still need housing, they still need employment, they still need education, childcare, transportation. All of these things still have to go through digital channels to access. So the disparity there is still access and then financially affording any of those different resources. I would also say, lastly, is around specifically with workforce, we see ATS systems are used by most employers by and large. One example would be the state of California. We have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of jobs here in California, and it's wonderful. But being able to get in to apply to those jobs, you have to have a resume that is reflected a certain way. It has to be formatted a certain way, and it has to pass through the automated tracking system scanners that employers use to vet those resumes in real time. These are things that most participants, most people who are coming home, I would say probably most people generally don't know about, is those specific restrictions nowadays digitally that pass somebody through to a live in-person interview. And what we see with participants working very strategically with their resumes is we have to format them certain ways and really work with them specifically to get the access to a real live in-person interview.
Awesome. Thank you, Connor. No, that was excellent. There's a lot of great points that you brought up. I really like that you also brought up the piece about digitally navigating and digitally upskilling workforce ability to apply for jobs online. That is going to be a huge component of it. And I think one thing that I do want to note to everyone in participation is we met CEO Works at the Sacramento regional event, and you facilitated a conversation with someone who came from incarceration, and it was a really I think humbling story on my side of just understanding that as a formerly incarcerated individual of 40 years coming out of incarceration, it's not just about coming home or getting connected. It's also about just understanding the basics of digital navigation skills. So Connor, super appreciate your time, your sharing. And now we're gonna move on to the Senior Director for Institutional Development at Empower Inc., Jennifer Jamie. Jennifer?
Hi there. I actually have a slide deck if you don't mind if I share it. There you go. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about what Empower does with the caveat that when I go to these kinds of things, what I'm most interested in is identifying opportunities to partner. And I just want to start off by saying Empower is really, really interested in partnering with a spectrum of organizations. We believe that we can't train everybody ourselves. We can't do it all alone. It takes a village. And so I'll put my contact information in the chat after I talk. So we're a national nonprofit organization. Our vision is we want to see a future where our tech workforce is diverse and clear pathways exist for everyone, no matter what their socioeconomic background, no matter what their ethnicity. And we want to see everybody benefit not only from the education and health outcomes that come with digital connectedness and digital literacy, but we also want to see, what we specialize in is helping people enter a career in technology so that they're no longer just consumers of technology, but then take their rightful place at the table of developing technology and influencing the shape of it and fixing it. So we're explicitly focused on getting people into tech careers. We focus on people from underrepresented populations and underserved communities. This is a little bit of a snapshot of what we're about. Our mission specifically is to create pathways to prosperity by launching digital careers for military veterans and young adults from underserved communities. We have a national staff of about 185. It's about 25 of us in California. National budget of about 30 million. It's about a $3 million budget in California. We're funded by corporations, foundations, individuals, and government. And here's our national footprint. We are in Northern California in Silicon Valley, and we serve the greater San Francisco Bay Area, and in Los Angeles, California. And excuse me, we're also looking at expanding to the Sacramento area in the next year or two. So as I mentioned, who we serve, we focus on military connected, which is veterans. We also train military spouses, as well as people who are in the National Guard and reservists and their spouses. Just require that military connected people be either transitioning from the military or honorably discharged. And just about half of the people that we train have no college or only some college, and then the other half actually have been to college. We also focus on young adults, or what some of us call opportunity youth, who are 18 to 26 years old and neither connected to work or college. And within those categories, we have a special emphasis on recruiting women into tech careers and training and upskilling them to start new tech careers. And particularly, we really want to see more women of color who are the most underrepresented in the field of tech. Our training programs are more comprehensive than most. What we specialize in is we recruit over 80%, sometimes over 90% of the trainees that we engage are people of color. All 100% are either unemployed or underemployed, come from low-income backgrounds. And that's who we exist to serve. Our program is 100% free to them. We have a National Instructors Institute that trains our instructors on our trauma-informed proprietary curriculum and makes sure that we ensure quality across all of our instructors, across all of our field offices. We have a really incredible network of over 250 tech industry partners. So we're really adept at getting our graduates connected to jobs in the tech industry. All of our training programs lead directly to industry credentials, such as CompTIA ITF+, CompTIA A+, really focused on kind of IT generalist credentials, as well as cybersecurity and cloud computing. What makes us really unique is we have built-in wraparound support. We have social support managers on our staff, and all trainees have, in addition to participating in cohort-led instruction, instructor-led programs, they have a social support manager who checks in with them once a month, sometimes more frequently, to make sure that they have a roof over their head, enough food to eat, internet connection, a laptop to use, childcare if they need it, clothing for job interviews, whatever it is that might present a barrier to getting into the tech workforce. We make sure to connect our trainees with ways to overcome that barrier. And then another thing that makes us a little unique is we have a full-time placement team on staff. So after trainees go through our workforce training program, which is, we have a set of them that I'll talk about in a minute, but they're from 16 to 20 weeks. They will work with our placement team to get paid on-the-job training, sometimes in the form of internships, sometimes apprenticeships. Most frequently, we really try to get people into full-time permanent jobs. And also—
Hey, Jennifer, we have 1 minute left.
Okay, all right, I'm going to jump
Jennifer. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. Okay, so let me see what to skip forward to. In terms of barriers, here we go. So I wanted to address just a couple of the, you asked to talk about barriers, what's working and what are the gaps. So in addition to access to basic internet and access to devices. There's something that doesn't get talked about often enough, which is the time needed for and the support needed for people to formulate a career identity that involves working in the tech industry. When you come from a background where no one in your family has worked in tech and you haven't had really adequate internet service, it takes a long time to get to the point of signing up for a workforce training program like ours. And what works is programs that help people explore potential careers. Those are called career navigation programs. And role models, who are people that the target populations identify with that are working in tech. And what the gap is there's really a lack of some of the digital literacy programs that do the really basic education with tech workforce programs like ours. And so as we train those people and provide those digital navigation services so that people can figure out how to do a job application online and how to do a telehealth appointment online, we also need to build into those programs a little bit more of role modeling and career exploration and navigation so that we get more of these underrepresented populations confident enough to sign up for a tech workforce training program and get into the workforce. And then the other big barrier is everybody needs to make a living while they're learning, and not a lot of people can completely go to school full-time. They have families to support. Apprenticeships, part-time training like our program, those are things that work. Also upskilling incumbent workers. Grants for wages and stipends so that when people are going through a training program, they get a little bit of financial support. And what's really lacking is there's not enough funding for those wages and stipends. Tech employers have been a little slow to adopt the apprenticeship model, and we just really need more experts in apprenticeship to connect these people with apprenticeship opportunities. And then the last barrier is just having really direct job placement support and access to a network of employers and tech professionals to help you get that interview. And we provide that, but we can't train everybody. And there's a need to staff up that position that connects people that have gotten digital skills with opportunities in employer programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a lot of great information, and truly appreciate it. And there was one question about the slides. Not sure entirely when we'll get those slides up to the portal. One of the things we have to do is make sure that everything is accessible and remediated. So we may have to work with Empower to get those in a place that we can post and or send out. So thank you again, Jennifer. And we're going to move on to our final panelist, the Director of Outreach and Engagement at CROP, which is Creating Restorative Opportunities in Programs. Richard?
Hi, everybody. How you doing? My name is
Great.
Richard Morales. I'm also the co-founder of CROP Organization, Creating Restorative Opportunities in Programs. I'm actually joining you from the Jobs for the Future conference here in New Orleans. And I want to talk a little bit about the divide. While I was incarcerated, after incarceration, I've been free now for 4 years and 3 months. I spent over half my life incarcerated. Graduated from high school, joined the Air Force, went down a path of using drugs, got addicted, leading to a criminal lifestyle, leading to a 25 years to life sentence at the age of about 21, spent 21 years of my life in prison. Like I said, I've been out 4 years and 3 months now, but I can agree with Dr. Pham. I want to let you know a little bit about the carceral system here in California. There is no Wi-Fi. It is true that the professors there from Hartnell College, I just did a workshop there with some of the professors and talked about, demystifying some of the stigmas of teaching the incarcerated or working with the prison staff there. My hat's off to them who go in, because there is no Wi-Fi. They have to bring it in. A lot of times officers don't want them to come in. They have this mindset that, like, why are you doing this for them? Like, these subhuman creatures, they don't need this. But 95% of people will come home. I got my AA degree in there, my bachelor's degree, and left 4 classes short of an MBA. I'm about to finish it in the next few months. But I want you to know, like, there's not funding for a bachelor's program or a master's program. That had to come through family. and there was no Wi-Fi, and there's only 5 universities in the whole country that offer degrees, accredited degrees, paper-based, right? So if the prison would just offer Wi-Fi, that would really add more impact to the R on CDCR, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. With no Wi-Fi, it's very hard to access rehabilitation. I was on a list while I was incarcerated to join a class that's offered in a very few prisons called Office Services and Related Technology. I was on that waiting list for 7.5 years and never made it in to learn how to utilize Microsoft Suite. So, and then, when we talk about like career training, a lot of people think there's vocational training that's in there. The vocational training, I'd say 95% of it is just related to gig economy jobs, almost nothing tech related, with the exception of like the Last Mile program. And that's a great program, and they teach coding, but you're talking about them reaching maybe 30 people per cohort, 2 cohorts a year. So 60 people out of 100,000 in a year. So it's just, it's very, very small amounts of people are actually reached. The other thing is that you might hear that the prison system offers tablets now, but what do they provide on the tablets? I'll tell you what they provide. I had one of them. They provide games, movies, music, classic books. But what they ought to be offering, and what we're dying for while we're incarcerated, is like career training, vocational training, courses that I could have now have access to on YouTube or Udemy or Udacity or the Khan Academy or LinkedIn Learning courses, or some of the courses that we provide even at Crop Organization, like Google Suite training or Technomedia, the Google certification program. And it's just not offered. And again, it's like, if that was offered, so many more people would come out ready to be, returning citizens, ready to hit the ground running in careers. So like I said, I left after 21 years, 4 years ago, leaving behind a typewriter. A typewriter is like gold in there. And barely they started toss around ideas for the college program, a laptop, but we're being shut out of like learning quality, or receiving digital literacy that would, offer us the opportunity to come out here to quality jobs, right? And instead of just, construction, truck driving, landscaping, lawnmower repair, engine repair. I want to tell you a little bit about how I was impacted after coming out after 21 years in there in 2019. I came out totally inept in this digital world. I didn't know how to use a cell phone. I didn't know how to use a PC or a MacBook, something I'm used 12 hours a day now. I didn't know how to use a smart TV or pretty much any app to create any account. Or what's an app? I had heard of them through college books, but what do I do with it now? Is it safe to open it? Is it not safe to open it? What's safe? What's not? How to use social media for jobs? How to get gas or with a credit card, or how to turn on my car because there was no keyhole anymore. I was scared. When I first got my first car and couldn't find the keyhole, I was like, man, I'm really inept and doing something wrong. In reality, it was just a push button now. Ordering food at restaurants using a QR code. I didn't know how to do self-checkout. I was literally shaking at a self-checkout at Target. I just felt I'm 40 years old and I see kids over here doing it. And how am I ever going to make it out here? And thankfully I had built my own mindset in there that I'm going to make it no matter what. But it was terrifying, not knowing how to use mobile banking, Gmail or Outlook, things that are just natural to children now. What button do I click to send this email? Had no idea there was such a thing as email etiquette. And then showing up to the DMV to get an ID or a driver's license or social security office. No one answers. There's like, do you have an appointment? Make an online appointment. And with attitude, what's Wi-Fi? How do I get Wi-Fi? What plan do I get? What do I need? There's a manual in prison called the Title 15, and it says the purpose of prison is to punish. Yet the name is California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. $14.9 billion a year budget. Only 2.9% of that goes towards rehabilitative programs. That's why recidivism rates are so high. At Crop Organization, we have 0 recidivism rate. 1,500 people have gone through our program. No one has recidivated. Why? We studied the ways that reentry was being done poorly and what wasn't working. And we wanted to normalize opportunities for the formerly incarcerated so that we could help them bridge their own digital gaps as soon as possible and segue them into quality livable wage careers. The state of California heard our vision for formerly incarcerated people sentenced to life, and they chose to fund our program with $28.5 million. And that was within 3 years of us being home. Why? Because it would save them money. And we built a 4-pillar program. You see in the background, that's our housing component, 9 4-story condos. And our program pretty much includes, and I'll wrap it up with the program, mindset development. We provide leadership development and professional workplace skills that are applicable in today's digital world. In the first pillar, we offer them, we put a strong emphasis on personal responsibility. You know, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That grit, that grind that's needed to make it in today's workforce. And so we offer them coaching in leadership development. And we know that a lot of the leadership development out here can be very expensive. So we offer that for free. They're able to live at our campus for free. We offer them $1,000 a month stipend. And then we offer them skill set training. So mindset, skill set, upskilling for formerly incarcerated people so that they can walk into livable wage careers, right? The people that graduate from our program won't start at anything less than $60,000 a year. And we offer 2 tech-based careers, B2B sales and UX UI design with on-site trainers. We offer financial literacy training with on-site bankers for 3 months, digital literacy training with Google Suite, Microsoft Suite through Technomedia. And we also offer professional workplace skills with LinkedIn Learning. And then 6 months of immersive training in either B2B sales or UX design. We have our campus in Oakland. We have a campus in Long Beach in LA. And that's just a start. We plan on expanding all the major reentry cities in California. But we found that you couple that with housing. On Fridays, we do service work, right? One of the most important things I had to learn while I was incarcerated, it's not about me. It's not about me. I was selfish, self-centered, egotistical, but it's not about me. It's about we. How could I be of service? Not just get a career, but think for others. Think for others. So we build that community there, immersive community for 1 year. And our recidivism rates are 0. So that's a little bit about, you know, the gap while incarcerated, after incarceration, and what we're doing at Crop Organization. If any of you in the Bay Area would like to come visit our campus, we're at 2511 Adeline Street in Oakland, California. Come do a tour and see formerly incarcerated people who have no limitations on what they can do and who they can be, learning things that a lot of people probably thought was impossible for, you know, these people. When in reality, the ceiling for who we can be and what we can do doesn't exist. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Richard. Really, thank you for sharing your personal story and for the work that Crop does. And wanted to say that, you know, Cole mentioned earlier that we met Connor in Sacramento. We met Richard in Oakland. And so what you're really seeing here is this confluence of the different components of the digital equity planning process where we've been able to bring in subject matter experts that we met at the in-person regional planning workshops and bring you to the virtual statewide planning group to share your story. And just really want to thank all the panelists. I mean, from Mr. Cameron talking about how broadband investments really can impact those rural communities, not just from a connectivity for the residents, but really the economic development benefits of supporting precision agriculture, you know, and food production. Really, Dr. Pham, another person that we met out in, you know, the regional planning workshops, you know, underscoring the critical role that community colleges play as you know, training centers for many of the covered populations. And then really the digital literacy and inclusion is essential to really bridging that workforce gap for the vulnerable populations to bring them into the modern economy. And so much of the digital equity planning process is about identifying the barriers and developing strategies for the covered populations and directing investments there. We've heard a lot about the common barriers, and there are a lot of common barriers for the covered populations, but definitely, Connor and Richard, want to thank you for speaking the truth and the experience about the very unique and particular barriers there are for the justice involved community. The tech unfamiliarity or just being left off that tech treadmill, the housing insecurity and the economic insecurity when you're going out. And it's really why this is such an important focus, because Richard, like you said, it's amazing. 0% recidivism rate. That's the end goal, right? So just thank you all very much for bringing your expertise here, and hopefully you will continue to participate in the next session, which we may have to shorten a little bit so we can get to the, I see Walter had a question about the survey and the Dean tool. We will go over that, but Cole, back to you to kind of open it up to the broader community.
Yeah, and thank you. And can we bring the slides back up, Carlos? And so to make sure that we can get enough time for some community discussion with all the participants and everyone on, understand we can both have a conversation through the chat feature, next slide, and raise your hand feature. And we'll probably limit this to about 10 to 15 minutes so we can get to some of the calls to action. Next slide. We have 3 questions and prompts, however you want to look at it, to talk about workforce and economic development. Please feel free to comment on any of the questions. We don't have to do them in order, and really whatever one is of the most interest to you at the moment. So what parties are most critical to promote digital equity skills and digital inclusion to improve workforce and economic development outcomes? What are some recommendations to improve workforce training for broadband infrastructure deployment and technology jobs? And finally, what solutions will deliver outcomes to digital equity barriers in your region? Happy to open it up if you have a comment or any ideas. Please raise your hand or put it in the chat. Oh, come on. We can't be that quiet after all of that great sharing of the panelists. I know there's groups out there. There we go. All right, Dr. Pham.
Hi, on question number 2, I just wanted to share, one of our local companies close to the college actually had a fire incident at their organization. And then after that, what they did was pretty amazing. We partnered with them, locally on different projects, but they came to us and say, you know what, we want to retool our facilities and we want to upgrade the technology. Can you train our future employees or our existing employees who are out of the job right now? Can they come to your college and learn, and we'll tell you what kind of tools we're using, what kind of technologies we're using, and then can you help us train them? So I think that was pretty good, the partnerships between or different organizations throughout the county.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Pham, and getting us started. Roberto. I can see you. You should be able to unmute now. Let's give it. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hello. So I work with Youth Build Charter Schools of California. We have 17 different sites throughout the state of California, and we're actually part of a larger entity called Youth Build USA, which has over 260 sites throughout the United States. And one of the things that we've actually been trying to do the last couple of months is actually trying to give our young people opportunities to actually enter into the technological workforce. Which is easier said than done because many of our young people don't actually know that there's opportunities to get apprenticeships or internships. Like right now I saw Empower, right? They're nearby, but it's like we don't come together. We don't know that they exist, right? And so, for the upcoming year, we actually connected with LA County through the Delete the Divide, their opportunity. And we're actually having some of our young people already sign up for that. And I mean, the courses are great. They're very intuitive. They break down how to do the certification, which for our young people, it's what can I do? How can I do it? Right. And having that access I mean, all we keep hearing about is access. How can we access this information? How can we get those opportunities? But also, how can we create spaces where young people can actually connect to those opportunities and have the time to actually do the certification and get that access to those opportunities. And I think, you know, knowing where can they go, how can they do it? I mean, I saw the LA library one. I mean, literally, I live right across the street from where it's happening, and I'm like, I didn't even know that, right? And so having that knowledge and being able to share that knowledge and even connecting with not only schools but different programs that they can actually partner and do the certification there on site. Like right now I heard with the program that was just mentioned in Oakland, right? I'm in Compton, so it's very much, we have a huge population that is within the prison system and the prison and probation system. So how can we give those opportunities to young people in this area who are in that system? Or if there are organizations, how do we know that they have that opportunity available? But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, just some thoughts, because I mean, there's opportunities there and I can see it and I'm hearing them, and every single week, every single time that I jump on, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that was available. But how do we share that with the rest of the community so they can connect to those opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for reiterating that idea, that a strategy of building a collaboration space or digital collaboration space where we find all the different programs and bring them together, and hopefully the state digital equity plan can start that process. And thank you, Roberto. And there was one great chat about a solution needed for delivering outcomes in the ability to match remote people with fully remote roles. Many jobs still require a significant on-site component, which pulls people out of their communities. And anything we can do to train workers be effective remotely. Thanks for your chat comment. Gina, your hand is raised, and you can now unmute.
Thank you so much. I'm just totally inspired. Richard, I just got to tell you, awesome. I choose to work with some of the most difficult communities because I have this motto is I'm the welcome wagon. And I let folks know I'm not about creating barriers because too many times the people we serve, that's all they get is barriers. I wanted to let you know about something I feel that was a success. I had a gentleman come and enroll in my program, and I asked him, how did you hear about it? And he says, I heard about it when I was incarcerated. You know what? I felt like I hit bingo because that's exactly where we need to be. So he was released from a local county jail and heard about what we were doing. And then he came to us because the need there, you know, when a person is released from prison, it's a different connection. I mean, we don't know how to connect, and I'm thankful that the work Richard has done. But I think we need to also focus locally and see how do we work with our county detention facilities and how do we get folks the devices they need immediately, because when they're walking out there, they've got no communication, no cell phones, no tablet, no anything. And many times, even if they had a tablet, they wouldn't know how to use it. Many times they have to do training, and a lot of times that's on Zoom. So we need to work better with these facilities, our local detention facilities, and of course our prisons, because we have a lot of work there. It's especially difficult for women that are being released. And I know this because I have a dear colleague of mine that works very specifically with a women's detention facility and finding the needs that are there. So we needed that. That was one thing. The other thing that I didn't hear today, and I feel we really need to address, is we need to look at retooling. You know, we talk about young people, we talk about older people, but you know, I really would like to talk about people who now all of a sudden there's a layoff, and what do? What can they possibly do? And I think that there's opportunity for our community colleges, our adult education to step in and to help people find their way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gina, for both of those comments and those ideas. I do want to give a couple more moments for anyone to join and also elevate and ask Amy Greenwood if she would like to join and share as well, not just in the chat, about your comment. Okay. Oh, Amy, go ahead. We got 1 more minute. You do it.
Great.
Share a
So
little bit more.
the comment
Yeah.
was based on the indigenous people that we're working with in California who really have a big stake in remaining on their land. And it's great to train people for tech jobs, but a lot of those jobs require people to move to the city or to travel a lot. So I think one of the barriers that we haven't talked about is simply the availability of fully remote jobs and how to be effective remotely. So
Outstanding. Thank you so much for clarifying and adding a little bit more to that comment, Amy. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to pass this off now to Sean Daugherty at Broadband Equity Partnerships, who is helping closely with the state of California to work on the state digital equity plan and talk about some really key call to actions with the digital equity survey. Sean?
Thanks, Cole. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here today. Sean Daugherty with the Broadband Equity Partnership. Great. Thanks, Carlos. Here to kind of do 2 calls for action. We have, in addition to these wonderful working groups we have, and we've had so many wonderful in-person workshops throughout the state, we are also collecting information through an individual public survey as well as an organization-based survey. So I'm going to talk about both of those data collection modules. And I'm going to first start off with the individual digital equity survey. Next slide, please. So we have developed a digital equity online survey. We developed it in 14 languages, and I'm going to actually demo this in just a few moments. So we're going to be able to see some of these features live and how functional and easy they are. We took a lot of intentionality behind thinking about accessibility and functionality. And so I'll demonstrate that. So again, this online public survey is for individuals and households. So I'm hoping everybody on this call has taken the survey, that you're going to share it with your communities, that with your networks. Richard, I hope, everyone who's gone through your training program will take it. That's such a community that we want to hear more from, so we can better take all of this information and place it into our state digital equity plan. The individual data just makes it much stronger, and so that the plan is really reflective of the needs of California. And in regards to that accessibility, it's mobile reactive. So if someone were to, take your smartphone to that QR code that's on your screen right now, it'll show nice and clear. And again, when I demo it, it'll kind of be the exact same thing that's on your phone. Again, we have it in 14 languages.
Can we demo the tool now?
Oh, you want to do a demo of the tool now?
Let's do the demo of the tool now.
Sure, why not? There we go, right? Why not just talk about it all at once, right? Yeah, so as you can see, it's nice, clear, and easy. It says it takes 10 to 15. It took me 7. The questions are short and succinct, and we hope, we made it that way to make it a lot easier. At the top, you can toggle between all the different languages where you see kind of the globe in English. If you click down on that, there's all the different languages, and if you click on it, it's just easily responsive. And then in that lower corner, let's keep it on the Spanish. You can see that little audio button. If you just hit play, all of that language that's written will be played. And that has been recorded in all of those 14 languages. And so it's very easy for people who maybe have low literacy rates or maybe are visually impaired. So it helps them complete it as well. If you want to hit that next button down below, and we can proceed. And again, just showing that it's clear, easy to read. You must be 18 and a resident of California. That basically gets you into the survey. But after that, it's asking, do you identify with any of the covered populations, your zip code? And really, we want to know those barriers. Is it cost? Is it access to a device? And so, we're, so Cole, I don't know if we actually want to back out of this. I want to show some of the good survey results, that we've had so far. Back to the slides. Or is it the one after this? Yeah, this is what I want to show, that we've had 4,500 responses so far. The survey's been out for 3 weeks. We want to get to at least 10,000 with 40 million people in California. We're hoping 10,000 is easy. But as you can see, we're getting good traction with those covered populations that we want to hear more from. So share it with your networks. I think so many of these covered populations are represented on this call, or organizations that serve and support them. So please share it to your networks. And again, we did the 14 languages, 13 of those have already been utilized. So again, that we focused on accessibility and making it as broad a reach as possible. And just let's go back up to that one previous slide.
Yes.
I got too excited about this data. And as you can see, this is kind of the breakdown response by county. We love to see some of the more rural counties, Imperial, Inyo, responding and kind of catching up to the LA counties. But if you recognize yourself being in one of those counties, you serve populations in there, we would love to see numbers in all of those counties rise. And Scott, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I do. I think, we're so thankful for all of the support that folks have given throughout the process thus far, and really want to ask you to lean in and help promote this. The survey is working, and we know that that by looking at the total responses, we want to let you know that there's a 70% response rate. So folks who open the survey actually complete it. And if we go to, well, one thing I want to say is we're working with the rural county representatives of California, CSAC, League of Cities. If you see your county or, that your city lives in with a low response, there's some, I'm going to work with my folks in the North Bay. I'm from San Rafael, so Marin, Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino, to get better turnout there. We need your help. And if you go to the next slide again, what I want to say is that the accessibility features are working in language, but when you look at the responses from the covered populations, we're getting great feedback. And I see Ernie Pacheco from CWA just put that. I think a lot of thanks is due to the outreach that CWA is doing. You'll see aging individuals, you have 1,400 responses, and that's because the AARP of California has promoted that out. So, we have created an outreach toolkit that has, pre-drafted communications to go out to student populations, employees, residents, constituents. There's also social media assets, et cetera. California is a big state, 167,000 square miles, 40 million people. We would like to talk to everyone. And the thing that we've heard is that we need to continue to bring in the voice of the resident. We can't meet with all the residents, but we can give as many residents as possible a chance to be heard through this survey. And so please help us distribute this through your networks to the members of your community, your friends and family. And one thing I do want to make sure you know is that it was important to us. We know connectivity and access is a problem. You're seeing this on a computer screen. The survey is optimized to be taken on a mobile phone as well. So if someone in an area that doesn't have wired internet receives a message on a mobile phone via text or email, they're still able to complete the survey. And one of the things that we haven't really promoted as much is there's a built-in open source speed test at the back end of the survey that's helping us get some really good data, et cetera. So back to you, Sean.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that the survey is working, and excited to see the data that comes in as we leave it open for the next couple of weeks. I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this I'm going to talk about next is the digital equity ecosystem mapping, or the DEAM tool, as you might hear commonly referred to. There are actually two different DEAM tools. One is for specifically to ISPs. So Amelia, I don't know if this is something we would appreciate you sharing this amongst your network, but the more broader DEAM tool is for any organization, any nonprofit, religious organization, everybody on this call, where who does digital inclusion, digital equity work and or wants to. Again, there's always been this constant theme of partnerships and collaborations. So anybody, you know, even if they might be a non-traditional partner, please send this to them and ask them to complete this. Again, the more data we collect through this survey and the public survey just makes our our state plan that much stronger and that much more data-backed and informed by the people who are doing the work on the ground. So actually, do we want to do another quick demo? We can pull that up and I can kind of explain. Again, this is the tool here is in English and Spanish. Again, takes about 10 minutes, but I recommend that you look at that toolkit first that Scott mentioned. It does have a one pager or a sheet that will help you identify what information you might need beforehand. It collects a lot of demographics. If you want to hit next there, Carlos, I think you're on slides with me. About your organization, how you identify, are you a government organization, tribal organization? Even looking at that list might pique your interest of like, oh yes, I work with the library on this. So and so sending it to people that maybe, or organizations, as you look through and complete it yourself, we would appreciate you taking a look from that lens. What covered populations, what counties, what cities do you cover? And then going through and seeking more data on actual programs that you have. What do you have dedicated staff to it? And so all of this, as part of the planning process is just instrumental in making sure that the report and the plan is as strong as it can possibly be. And this has been out for a couple weeks. So let's go back to the slide presentation and we can talk about some of the outcomes that we've seen so far. So this is just a heat map of the state of California. We want at least one respondent from every county. We think that's the floor. We know that there are organizations and work being done in each of these counties. So if you do work in one of those counties, that's that pink red or how I'm seeing it, please respond. If you work with a partner organization, please respond. If you are in any of these counties, please respond. We want, again, more than 280 organizations in our pool of data. And if you want to actually go to that next slide, I think it kind of details down a little bit further. There's more than 41 county governments. There are more than 19 city governments. So clearly there's work to be done. And they may have completed it. You don't know that. I would rather them hear 2-3 times from different organizations urging it to be completed, as opposed to them not having the ask be received at all. And if we want to move on to that next slide. And so here are the links to the toolkits. Those toolkits, as Scott mentioned, include social media, one-pagers, flyers, links to QR codes to make it easy, whether you're talking to people in person or just attaching them on invoices, or maybe you're having a job training, an in-person function, having the QR code sit there on the table as they sign into the event. We are here to be creative with you as ways to engage with your community. So please look at these tools, reach out to the community, and we appreciate you doing this work to give us all the data possible to make the plan as strong as possible. And Scott, any kind of closing words on these tools?
Yeah, just a little clarification. So the digital equity survey is to gather input from residents, and there's an outreach toolkit that includes a number of different types of communications and social media assets in different languages. And there's actually a guide for outreach partners on this survey. The digital equity ecosystem mapping tool is for entities and organizations to map their work to help the state, the Department of Technology, and PUC develop a comprehensive asset inventory of the current folks in the space and those who want to get into the space and help implement the digital equity plan afterward. And so there's a separate toolkit for the digital equity ecosystem mapping tool, because one's targeted to organizations, one's targeted to individuals. The thing that I would say is that, like Richard, crop, we'd love to capture what crop's doing in the digital equity co-mapping system. Connor, Amelia from WIA, Empower, Dr. Pham, that exactly what you spoke about is what we need to capture in the digital equity mapping tool. And then is Walter still here? Because I think Walter had a question about both the digital equity survey and the DEAM tool.
Walter is with us still.
Walter, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, hi. No, I haven't passed away. I'm still here. Although every day is new. I just wondered what all this data you're collecting, when do we get to see it?
So
Not sort of the response pattern, but I mean, what the answers to the questions, aggregated, sliced and diced, that kind of thing.
yeah, well, first we have to complete the acquisition tool before we can analyze it. And so what I can tell you is that the digital equity survey is open till June 30th. So we need a big push from folks to help us get to 10,000 or greater. We will analyze the aggregated data and put that out, and that's going to inform the digital equity plan. If we get enough responses, that public data is just going to be shared with the ecosystem. So counties, cities, school districts, if there's enough data that supports them in developing digital equity plans, we'll give them that raw data so that they could work it on their own. So Walter, I would say from the digital equity online survey, probably expect sometime July, August. It's going to take us a while to churn all the data. And then did you have a separate question on the DEAM tool?
Yeah, just to say, see, we're doing South Bay City's Council of Governments, and we're doing our own digital equity plan. And so it would be great to see anybody from LA County or in our part of LA County that's already responded to the DEAM tool. That would be great to see that.
Got it. Okay, cool. And so have South Bay Cities, are you guys actively promoting the digital equity survey?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
You and I met at the in LA at the Trade Tech. I was at your table.
I know you're being generous to let me to kind of softly put you on the spot, because I was going to say the more digital equity survey, the more folks that you encourage in the South Bay Cities region to apply, the better and rich data you're going to have that we can provide you to inform your plan. And
understood, but we also want the data for our own plan.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we don't want it to go to the state and have it swallowed into a, the state funnel.
Got it.
We want to see what you got, and we want to have what we got, and we'll share with you what we got.
Got it. Well, the only PII we're able to not personally identify information, people volunteer their zip codes. So, folks are going to be able to sort the raw data by zip code and pull out whatever they want for their own areas. But again, I think if you want to use the data, it's in your best interest to promote it widely throughout your area. And then a note on the DEAM tool information. We want that information to help inform the digital equity plan and how we're going to recommend spending the digital equity capacity dollars that come with the implementation. But we also intend to make use of it. Like this whole process has brought the state together and introduced us to various entities within the region, and we will sort that data and share it back with the regions as well, and probably visualize it on the Broadband for All portal so that folks can have a one-stop shop and contact each other.
Great. Looking forward to that. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you for the question, Walter. Really appreciate it.
And so Scott and Sean, I think the next two slides to wrap us up, since we're getting close to time or at time, just last final call to action outside of the state digital equity plan survey is we have some upcoming broadband for all BEAD and digital equity tribal consultations. Big call out here is it's for tribal leaders, members, and representatives. So if you do represent a tribe or a part of a tribe, please attend these in-person events. Next slide. We also have other virtual events that you can join. The State Digital Equity Plan, the next one will be in July 26th. And we have outcome area working groups, just like the Workforce and Economic Development one today that we had. We have health and essential services tomorrow with a July to be determined date for a tribal collaboration outcome area working group meeting. Next slide. Outside of involving in meetings, please share the digital equity public survey with your friends, your family, your networks. We've attached the toolkits in the chat, and they'll additionally be on the portal and in the follow-up emails we will be sending you shortly. Additionally, complete the Deem tool and look out in summertime for that public comment on a draft for the state digital equity plan. Next slide. Here is some contact information for myself and for Carlos, who did join as well. And with that, just again, reiteration of thank you for joining, thank you for participating, thank you for listening, and thank you for joining in the chat and or adding additional comment. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you for your involvement with the State Digital Equity Plan.